Good morning, gamers. As you know, I beat Sonic Wave, and if you want to see that completion, it will either be in the top right of your screen or in the description. But in this video, I'm going to go over the tips and tricks I use to beat Sonic Wave. Okay, so the first thing to note about Sonic Wave is there was an animation added slightly before the first wave, and it's kind of annoying, but if you like seeing it, then you can press this toggle trigger here. So if you were ever wondering what that does, it just toggles that animation on. It is off by default, and if you just want to not have to deal with it, which I'll show it on screen right now what it looks like. And if you don't want to deal with that, then just don't press the trigger at all. Okay, so this first structure here, what you're going to do is obviously hit this pink orb, and that's going to make you land on this blue pad. Now these two clicks can be buffered, which is really nice. It means you don't have to time anything, you can just buffer them, and if you don't know what buffering a click is, it's where you click it before the click will actually be able to be performed. And the way you do it is you just click and hold before a click, and it will just automatically do it at the earliest possible frame for you. It's a really useful tip. So that's kind of a demonstration on how to buffer. As you can see, my cube decided to hit them at the earliest possible frame. And then here, this is a pretty annoying click here. So if we look at the hitboxes, as you can see, it's not very forgiving between this saw and this spike. But from my experience, what's going to kill you a lot more is this top spike. So this orb is going to feel very uncomfortably late. And the higher your refresh rate, the easier it is to hit this orb because you can actually collide with the ceiling here, but on higher refresh rates, it happens less. Then we do those three clicks, they're pretty natural. One thing to note though is when you're in that yellow portal, you definitely want to wait a few seconds just to make sure you actually get upside down and then you can hit the yellow orb, because if you buffer it, you're going to end up jumping and then going upside down and you're going to die. Next, those are late clicks. Now here, as you can see, it looks like a very big gap between this platform and this yellow orb. So your instincts are going to tell you, okay, I'm going to wait till I'm barely off that platform to click. But in reality, what we're going to do is we're going to make this curved jump here. We're going to hit this yellow orb very late because we need to be able to get under this saw. However, again, don't wait like your instincts will tell you on this platform, because if we wait too much, we're going to have too much forward position. And that forward position is going to make it so no matter how late we click this yellow orb, we're going to collide with the saw. So it's going to kind of look like this. As you can see, I hit that yellow orb super early and late. Like I was very to the left of it, so it looked like I wouldn't be able to hit it, but then I hit it near the bottom, and what that's going to do is help me clear this saw. Then we hit those two blue orbs. Now one thing to note here is we have another one of these examples where you have a gravity portal and then an orb inside of it. So the only thing to note here is you're going to wait until your cube actually hits that gravity portal, and then you're going to hit the blue orb. Now the reason why you can screw this up pretty easily is this blue orb hitbox actually extends out of the portal, which means you can hit it earlier than you hit the portal. Now with this other gravity portal with the blue orb inside of it, we just buffer it. We're going to be upside down, and if we hit the normal portal, we're going to go in like a little curve and smash into these saws. We want to go down instantly, and that's what the blue orb's there for. Then right here, what we're going to do is you're going to click and hold on the pink orb. Now, when you click a pink orb, as you know, it doesn't boost you very far. It's just a little tiny boost. And so we need to hit it very, very, very late. Almost where my cube is right now, basically, is when we click that pink orb and hold. And the reason why we're holding is so we don't activate this blue orb. The goal here is we'll click and hold on the pink orb, we'll get our tiny boost, and then because we're holding, it won't activate the blue orb. Instead, we'll just jump off of this, and then we get into the next section of the level. Just like that. Now on the ship part, all you have to do is when we hit this last structure here, you just click and hold. Just like that. Then it's just basic straight fly. The ship part is not terribly hard. The only difficult part, in my opinion, are these weird like structures where we change speed and gravity at the same time. The rest of the straight fly is not bad. You'll kind of learn it when you put a start position. You'll get it down pretty easily. These gaps are very forgiving. As you can see by the hitboxes, we have a tiny one because we're mini ship, and these saws are not big at all. Okay, so for these structures, this first one, what we're going to do is we're going to come up this slope, and we're going to hit the slow speed portal. Now what we want to do is if we just do nothing, well, I'll show you what happens if we do nothing. As you can see, what happens is we activate this yellow gravity portal super quickly, and we just fall to our death too quickly. And so what we need to do is we need to put a tiny little micro click in order to correct our ship position to clear this gap. We cannot hold because then we'll hit the top, and we don't want that. Well, top as in it's the top for us because we're upside down, but really this bottom spike. So just a very tiny click to get us through that gap. This is one of the things you're going to have to practice, kind of learn how long that click is. I can't really describe it, and plus, depending on how fast you react, that duration is going to change by literally milliseconds. Also, your refresh rate will affect that because Ship is highly affected by refresh rate. But hopefully in 2.2, all the refresh rates won't matter anymore, and we'll all have good physics. For the second gravity structure here, if you are above 60 frames per second refresh rate, you don't actually have to do anything. I tested this on all of the common refresh rates, and the only one I had problems with was 60 FPS, which includes most mobile players. On 75 Hz, on 120 Hz, on 144, 165, 225, 240, and 360, this click is completely automatic. If you are on 60 FPS, which includes 99.9% of mobile players, you will have to do another tiny click, or else you will crash into this bottom spike here. Now this final one looks like the first one, but it's actually kind of different, because what we're going to have to do is, unlike the last one where we went down, we're going to have to go straight here. So immediately after performing your small tiny micro click to get through here, we're going to also straight fly between these two saws. And then on that slope, as you could hear me do, you do a tiny, tiny, tiny little click. If we don't do anything, we'll die to this saw, and if we click too hard, we'll die to this saw, and we need to get kind of like in the sweet spot here. And the way you do that is by doing a tiny micro click while on the edge of the slope. Just like that. It can be a very tiny micro click. It can be like a 200 millisecond micro click. It's a micro click, which makes it pretty difficult to do on mobile, but just practice it, you'll get it down. It's very tiny click. That blue orb is very late. Now here in this ball, what we're going to do is hit this pink orb very late. That pink orb is also very late, and the other orbs are roughly natural, so I wouldn't worry about them too much. Then what we're going to do is this yellow orb will boost us. We click on this blue and yellow orb. Again, very natural timings. These guys aren't really that picky. We do those yellow orbs, and this is where it gets hard, because if I enable the hitboxes, you can see this is going to be a pretty difficult gap for a ball with this size hitbox. Lo and behold, these are the clicks I died to most. In the pre-drop while doing Sonic Wave, they're very annoying, but basically we do these two clicks pretty quickly, because when we click here, we're going to be almost arriving at this spike very soon. So these it's basically two groups of two very quick clicks, because we're going to do bam bam, then wait a little bit as our ball rolls over here, and then bam bam to hit this pink orb. This pink orb is also very late, and you're going to get thrown at it pretty quickly because of the way these slopes work, so you got to learn how to react to this. We do a couple more ball clicks. For those ones, I would recommend to look at the spike that you're going to collide with if you don't click, and wait until you're practically hugging it to make that click, because we're going to be traveling, as you saw, from one side of the screen to the other, so it's kind of difficult for my brain to judge based off of where I'm going to land, like, oh, hey, when should I click? It's much easier for me to look at what's near my ball to be able to tell when I should click. We click this blue orb to get into this duel, and for these ones, it's slightly annoying, because what happens is if you count these squares, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's just a random one that has 6 blocks instead of 5 blocks. So it's going to throw off your timing a little bit. This is a very, very big choke point for me. I practiced this ball duel a lot because these are not friendly clicks. As you can tell, that last one with a 6 block gap instead of 5 is a little bit later. So when you arrive at this wave section here, it starts out, we have these two very tight gaps here, and I don't really have any advice for getting through these gaps. They're just really tight. Now to align yourself for this, what I do is I wait until I fall all the way down, click all the way up, and then go through. Though if it helps you time it, you can also do a double click in this lots of space that we have here, so I'll show both of those methods. That's how you do both of those. And then when we arrive here, let me add the hitboxes. So when we arrive at these portals here, there are multiple ways to do it. One way that a lot of beginners do is they just spam through it, which works about half of the time, but obviously you don't want to get sent back to the start because you're just playing with luck. So what I like to do is I enter in, and then when I'm in the middle of the portals, I will click once, and that will align myself with this normal portal. So the way this works is you'll see I'll do it, and that will send you perfectly down into the next gap. As you can see, I mean, that's almost perfectly dead center. All you have to do, go up into the portal, click once, and make sure that your click is not too long, because the longer you hold in when you're upside down, you'll end up more on the bottom side of the normal portal. That will force you more towards this downward structure, towards this bottom structure. And you can't really click too short, because if you end up even at the top of this portal, you'll still end up on the high end here. And in my opinion, it's a lot easier. Just doing this one click to align yourself is a lot easier than spamming or just like trying to do this weird V-shaped click. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know that a lot of people do, and it makes it really difficult to align yourself with this gap here, which is why I don't personally recommend it. But if you find that my method is like complete garbage for you, then just find your own. That sounded passive aggressive. Next up, as you saw in the previous segment, this structure actually has a complete hole in it. It's fake. You can't go down because there's a saw, so you just do a nice click through here, and then you'll line yourself up with this arrow animation. So then when we click up into here, as you can see, we're going to run into these spikes here. And so the way we avoid them is by you clicking down, and when you're clicking and holding, you're going to be going up, and then you sort of just let go, but immediately hit the mouse again, or the keyboard, or your mobile phone. These types of clicks are very awkward, and depending on what device you use or by the flexibility of your fingers, your latency or the time it takes for you to let go and then go back on to your input device, it is going to be a little bit difficult to get through this gap. So definitely practice it, and if you're discovering that you have a hard time, just also practice the section beforehand and getting a line through the top section of here. So if it takes you a while to go down and go back up again, then you have that skill built. Once we come off of it though, it's also important to note that you can't just spam through it. You have to keep going up to clear this saw. So once we do that, we'll end up in these spikes, and these look almost impossible, but again, due to Geometry Dash hitboxes that everyone knows and loves, it's not actually terrible. It is pretty difficult. Just align yourself though with this arrow animation and you will be completely fine. But one thing to note is once we come out of it, you want to go a little bit higher up than just dropping down immediately, because that will help you get set up for this mini portal transition. And believe me, it's a lot easier if you're on the upper side of the mini portal rather than the lower side, because then you have less time to react and align yourself. Oh, I didn't put a checkpoint. So once we get into this mini portal, as you can see, I ended up on the top half of it. We're going to immediately change size and therefore our angle. And when we change our angle, we want to immediately go back up. And this is why I said you want to be on the upper side of things, because if you're on the lower side of things, you have almost no time to react to this angle change. Then we're going to click up and go back down and get aligned with this gap. Now this gap is not as scary as it looks, and you can also slide on the ceiling at the top, which means you don't have to have a perfectly precise release on this either. Just like that, as you can see, let me hide the pause menu here. You can see that I slid on the roof a little bit and it works perfectly fine with the hitboxes. And once you clear that structure, you get a break period for about 2% of the level, because these are super easy gaps, unless you're terrible at Miniwave. But if you're terrible at Miniwave, why are you playing Sonic Wave? So all you have to do is follow the arrow animations, and this is just so incredibly open compared to what we've dealt with for the past 5%. So just like that, we just go through, but you might have noticed that my last click here ended up slightly lower than the rest of them. Why did I do that? Well, it's because if we enable the hitboxes here, these slopes that are supposed to guide you down to this green portal are actually inverted slopes, which means that your cube can collide with the corners of these objects instead of just hitting this flat line. We'll collide with those corners if we don't go down quick enough. So when we're doing our clicks here, we want to make sure that we go a little bit lower on the very last one and then click up and hold. So when we click up and hold, there's two ways to do this very nasty click here. As you can see, we've got a bit of a problem because we've got a spike on the top structure here and then a spike on the bottom structure here, and they kind of contradict each other and create a very small gap for us to pass through. So if we do this the intended way, where we're supposed to, align ourselves through both of them, then we're going to have a very tight click. We might have 2 to 3 frames to actually make it through the direct middle of those. So we don't want to try to make it through that gap. We're going 3 times speed. The level's flashbanging us every second. So maybe let's not try to eyeball this. So what's the easier way? Well, the easier way is what we do is we intentionally place the wave on the lower side of things. This is going to have us in a direct course to crash into that bottom spike. So now it sounds stupid. Why am I telling you to do this? Well, what we can do is once we do this click and we're sliding down, it's like, okay, we got to dodge this spike. So we do one tiny click and then we're falling down here. So now we're on the upper side of things, and then all we have to do is click to avoid the saw, and it's just 3 clicks, 1, 2, 3, and we're out of this section. In my opinion, this is the most consistent click pattern, though if you want to try to find a better one, be my guest, but I just think trying to fit in between these 2 spikes in one singular click is just way too difficult to eyeball, and also way too risky. So doing those 3 clicks in rapid succession will get you through this area, and then we just slide all the way up. And then for this, it's a little bit misleading because when you see it, it looks very open, but this, as you can see, the structure actually only has a 2-block gap, and these, annoyingly, these hitboxes also stick out of the gap, which means you are susceptible to dying to these red pixels. As you can see, they stick out maybe 1 to 2 pixels off the screen. They can collide with you. They will collide with you. It is annoying. There's nothing you can do about it besides just getting used to spamming as fast as you can and consistently as you can through this gap. Just like that. Now, when we arrive at this section, we have another one of these things. So again, what I would recommend is this one's not as bad because, as you can see, there's nothing really after it for a couple of blocks. So all you do is go to the lower one and then do a micro click to get through here. Now, one thing to note here is you're going to want to decide what to do with these saws. The portal, which is off screen right now, is in the middle of the level, which means there are 2 routes to get to the saws. The one I took was I just went through the saws like intended. However, as you can see, there's quite a large gap on this top here, which means that if you want to, and if you can time it, you can actually go up above the saws and then drop back down to join the main route. So once you pick your route, we get to this duel, and this duel is super easy. In fact, I'll play it with hitboxes just to show you how ridiculously easy this duel is. I have no idea why Cyclic made this part just incredibly easy. I did not make the level. I mean, practically nothing to die to. I don't really have any tips either because it's just so incredibly easy. I'm gonna get an angry comment saying, actually, it's not easy. So now we arrive at the spam section, and this is my personally least favorite aspect of the level. It's just, I died here several times, and if you were in the Sonic Wave streams, you know how mad I got at this part. It was just so frustrating to have gotten 43% of the way into the level and then die to something that I consider very bad gameplay. But one thing to notice here is instead of spamming by clicking our mouse very fast, we're actually spamming by releasing our mouse very fast because we are upside down here. That means we're gonna have to cling to the ceiling and spam by releasing the mouse button instead. Just like that, and once we get through here, what we're going to do is let go into this blue portal. Now, once we hit this blue portal, we only have a couple frames to react and go back to clicking. We're going to release here and fall into the blue portal, and then you're gonna have to click and hold and do more mouse release spam. Now, this portal will kill you a lot if you are not fast enough to react. However, what I discovered in my personal experience is I died a lot less to mistiming the portal and more to clicking way too early. For example, my icon would get all the way here and then I'd click early and then die to the saw. So what I would do is when you're practicing this, make sure to not overreact because these are not lined up with this. This click is a lot later. You go click, 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 and then you wait a little bit because you're falling and then we'll click into the portal. So don't click too early because it happens a lot to people, including me. Once we finish that spam, you just fall down into here. Now with this section, it's very uncomfortable. You need to practice your route for this because it's a little bit difficult to eyeball. And the route here is we'll go up and then slide in between this gap. It's a very uncomfortable gap, and in my opinion, this first gap is the hardest gap. Okay, so once we arrive in this gap, we just click up. We've got this formation of saws, so we fall down into the gap, click up, fall down again, and then once we arrive here, you do 1 click to align yourself with here, and then you can spam into this mini portal. In this section of the level, we have a short mini wave spam where we need to spam at the top of the level, and then, as if that wasn't enough, once you end the spam, you have to align yourself with a nearly frame perfect timing. I died here so many times that we lost count on the streams. I think the final number came out to be over 27 or something. So, needless to say, this is definitely a huge choke point. You need to come up with a click pattern that's consistent. You can't just click as fast as you can and pray because you do need to get aligned. So once we spam here, now we have to get aligned with this. And compared to the mini wave timing before, this looks a lot tighter because it is. This is one of the hardest clicks, if not the hardest click in the entire level. Not only do you have to align yourself, you can't even get yourself into the ground to be able to eyeball this gap. As you can see, there's maybe like 0.8 of a block without a slope on it. So if you try to go down early, you'll crash into this slope, which means you have to time it from the ground and release it. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see. Let me disable the percentage bar and stuff. As you can see, you have no room on the ceiling to even slide on, which means you have to time the entry and the release perfectly. Was it really 47 times? Damn, bro, I got destroyed by that part. And then once we get out of that part, all we have to do is click 3 to 4 times to get through here. And we have, I'll keep the hitboxes on for this next part because it's like almost like another secret gap type thing we have to slide into. As you can see, we go under the structures here, and then we just come out slightly later. Though, don't go too early because there are still spikes here. You can recognize these spikes. These spikes are going to be sort of your indicators for when to slide down. As you can see, when you see this arrow, you just slide down, and then when you clear, you see that you clear these spikes. That means you can slide up and then spam to get through the rest of it. I'll go ahead and disable hitboxes now so you can see what it naturally looks like. And then once we clear that, we're going to be a mini wave again. And for this one, there are technically click patterns you can do. For example, you can go up and then down and then sort of dodge and weave around these slopes. But what I do is I just spam through the entire top half because any click pattern would be too inconsistent to reliably perform, especially at 53% of the level. It's not really worth trying to consistently time these types of clicks. I just spam. If you're good at spamming, this is really like 4 to 5 CPS consistent spamming, so it's not even that bad. Then, once we arrive at this part, all we have to do is we have this saw here, and that saw is going to be your indicator. I wouldn't worry about these two bottom saws because they kind of tie into it. Once we see this saw, we get as close as we can to it and then slide down, follow the arrows to get back up. Now, one thing you have to do here is these arrows here are lying to you because they just point directly to the spikes, so you need to go a little bit above them in both cases so you can clear this part. I'll show you what that looks like. Next, for that part, as you can see, I just spam, but I'll also show the intended route if you want. That is the intended route. I just spam through it because, in my opinion, that's too inconsistent and difficult for me. Then we arrive at the cube. That is the only first crucial click in the cube here, is when we have to clear both of these two mini spikes. And if you click this blue orb too early, then you're probably going to accidentally jump way too early as well. So what I do instead is I just click the blue orb very late and hold. Now right here, we have these two blue orbs and it looks like we're supposed to hit it, then jump off of this platform and then hit this other blue orb, but it turns out you can actually just skip both of them. J? I said D block? Yeah, what does D even stand for though? Dart? No, fuck. H is head? No, bro. The wave was named Dart. Imagine how lame it would be if it was like, I'm beating Sonic Dart, guys. Like, jeez. So we skip those blue orbs entirely, we hit these two pink orbs. Now I'd recommend buffering all three of these orbs because it's a little bit finicky. We have to jump off of this invisible platform, and so I would just recommend buffering all of these because if you hit this blue orb late, you're actually going to collide with this saw. Very annoying. I just recommend buffering all of them. Then we just spam on the rest of them. Again, we need to buffer these two yellow orbs because if I click them normally, as you can see, I collide with the saw and it's not even close. And even if I buffer them, you saw how close I got there. Next, we arrive at the part of the level that I call Faith because it says Faith right here. And Faith starts out very brutally. I mean, we're 66% of the level. Your heart rate is already accelerating. And now you have to do these two clicks. So good luck. It's basically a fuck you from Cyclic. So we get ourselves aligned with that gap. I don't really have any tips for it. It's just really hard. And then once we get through that, we can just hold on both of these portals. This looks like a very tight gap, but if you're holding, you will be able to clear this automatically. And now one thing here is it's a little bit finicky with these slopes. As you can see, all these slopes up here form a completely straight line. So we need to avoid that, but these guys kind of jut out. So all you have to remember is, as you can see, this top arrow of this animation, if you can align yourself with the top arrow, which I remember remember by it's the one right before the slow portal, then you can kind of like time where you need to make your release. Do note as well, there is a spike. That means you have to, once you make your release, you have to click up and hold a lot sooner than you might think. Now for this part, it's very open. We've got 2 blocks, but we've got spikes on every side. So there are 2 ways to do this, or 2 ways that I've seen to do this. And one of them is to stay in the middle and do a micro click and then click and hold. What that does is it dodges this bottom spike and we click and hold. And then to avoid this spike, we just release early and then do the double click all over again. In my opinion, that is inconsistent. The reason being, when you're doing this double click, you have the chance of hitting the upper ceiling. So instead, what I do is I simply time it. Now this, of course, is not a very popular way. I go on the upper side of this, go all the way up, time it, time it, time it, time it. It's a little bit harder than doing the double click, but the double click was super inconsistent when I tried it, so it's personal choice. I would try both timing it and double clicking. So that's kind of how you do the timing one. You'll end up very close to the slopes, but if you're not uncomfortable with that, then I would do that. That's kind of what the double clicking is, and I died, that's awkward, but still. And I don't know why, but for some reason when Cyclic made Sonic Wave, he decided to make every single duel here just the easiest thing of all time, because this duel is literally free. I'll show you it with hitboxes. And then you just hold up into the next portal. Bro, what is... What? Wait, did you see that with my wave? It was going the... What? Next, this upside down wave section is the undisputed most difficult part. You need to practice this. You need to put a start position here and play at least 1,000 attempts, because this part is just so insanely difficult. This part is so insanely difficult, and the reason being is it's not just tight slopes, it's hard and awkward timings. We're upside down, so it's a little bit confusing, and it features multiple different click patterns that are just super uncomfortable to do. So once we do those first 2 clicks here, which are pretty easy, super open, now we have to align ourselves in this gap. This gap is really hard to get into because, first of all, you would like to be, you'd like to have a little bit more time to align, but as you can see, we have to avoid this saw and these spikes, which means we kind of don't have a lot of time to make that alignment. After we make that alignment, if you survive, you'll slide down here, and then you have to click up and then down. These 2 clicks are not that hard, and then we click into this gap. This gap also isn't that hard, but then we have to release early to avoid the saw and then click up, which I'll showcase later. Once we get through there, we get to the hardest click, in my opinion, of this section. I died here 9 times. So there are 2 ways to do this. One of the ways I just could not bring myself to do because it was too hard. And this is very similar to what we saw at around the start of the wave. So we have this thing where we've got 1 spike on one side and the other spikes are on the other side, and they're kind of like creating this almost like ghost gap that's really tight. And one thing you can do is you could technically click early and then do a very tiny release and then click up into this, but I don't like this because this is 3 times speed. You'd have to go like very rapid clicks and then do this spam part. It's messy is what I'm trying to say. It's very messy. And so instead what I did was I just timed this, which is kind of a little bit difficult. I don't disagree, but one thing you should just do is practice this, figure out which method works best for you. Just like that, and then we go into the next section. Now here what we have to do, you can technically like do a sort of like a downward spam to get into here, but what I did is I just fall and then I click up. It's not really that hard, but if you notice that, for example, you're too high, well, if you're too high, you're screwed because you can't like force yourself back down. But if you're too low, for example, clinging the slope and if you're going to intercept with these spikes, then definitely feel free to use this wiggle room. There's a lot of it. So we head into that gap, and then here, this is a super annoying click because, as you can see, they're not actually aligned, and there's no way to get them aligned. So what you have to do is this micro click to get yourself aligned here, and then you have to spam through here and then click back up. So again, like what I said, this is the hardest part. I mean, we have a bunch of awkward clicks, really difficult timings, and another thing is you're not completely free to click anywhere you want to get aligned here. As you can see, we've got spikes on both the top and the bottom again, which means we have to click only in the middle. Just like that. You can click 1 time, you can click 2 times, you can click 3 times in this gap. 1 time was the most consistent for me, mainly because I'm not very good at consistently spamming. Next, we have this really annoying speed transition. Now, one thing to note that will kill you, it never killed me because luckily I never had the misfortune of it happening to me. But if you click up to try to align yourself here and let go way too early, your hitbox is actually small enough to sneak through the gap between this spike and these speed portals, it will screw you up. We go back into 3 times speed. This click is actually sort of difficult to time. As you can see, it's pretty open, but the reason it's difficult to time is, again, we have this speed change. Once we go through the speed change, we just release here and then click up to avoid that spike. Then for here, once we do those clicks and align ourselves, we need to get through this gap. And the weird thing about this gap is it's not aligned with this spam part. As you can see, the upper limit of here, if we draw a line here, as you can see, it's basically 1 block below this saw. You cannot use this saw as a reference point to determine where you should start spamming. You kind of have to go up half a block. As you can see, I kind of let the first click go a little bit higher up or down, technically, since we're upside down. Then when we get to here, as you can see, these slopes here aren't very nasty at all. So as long as you end up anywhere near the normal portal, you'll be fine. Then we go through these saws, the hitboxes. As you can see, we've got a lot of wiggle room. Next, when we're going into this portal, we actually do have to get on the lower side because of these opposable slopes. My wave here is so close to death, but it's going to clear it. Again, opposable slopes mean we've got these rectangles sticking out that can kill you. So definitely be sure when you're going through here to make your last click slightly lower than the other ones to get into this portal safely. Then we spam, and please do note that this kind of area right here is a little bit awkward. We've got the slopes and the saw, so if you're going to click at like 3 CPS, you're going to have to speed up right about here just to clear here. We spam through here, and then drop down into these. Once we get through the part where the slopes get to the highest, we're kind of like through the forest, if you will. Get aligned through there. And then another awkward point where we have a speed change. Speed changes mess you up all the time. I personally never got messed up by the speed change because I used this one simple trick. All you have to do is line yourself up with this arrow animation, which is possible before you hit the speed change, and you're good. We're falling down, which means there are no inputs during the speed change. We do that click, which honestly, even though it looks bad, I almost died actually, but even though it looks bad, it's not terribly bad because we are at normal speed instead of 3 times speed. We spam through here, and then we do 2 more clicks. Again, these are slightly tight, but they're not terribly bad, and then you just release into this cube section. Next, we get to this break part, if you will. It's a cube memory section. Now, the only tip I have is just practice it yourself and memorize the click pattern. I'll show you it. But one thing I will tell you is that the way Geometry Dash hitboxes work, your cube can slide out of the structure and then you can click. If you click while you're in the middle, you will die to the upper ceiling. But he will hold on for as long as almost until he's not even on the structure anymore. So definitely click late for every single one of these. Now for this one, it's a little bit weird because we have this invisible extension here, and we do want to click this late, but if we click it as late as you possibly can, you'll smash your head into the ceiling, which is unoptimal. So as you can see, we went up 3 times and then fell down once. And then once we get here, we go through this fake section here. So jump here. Don't go to here because this is fake. And then we just jump here. And then you don't have to do anything here. It will fall naturally. But then what you want to do is once you fall here, buffer click. And I'll show you where to buffer click. Buffer click right there. Okay, and finally we arrive at the very last wave. Now this wave is annoying because although the gaps look very nice, you have spikes, saws, and other crap that are in the way. So we do that part's just normal wave. So once we arrive at this gravity portal here, what you're going to do is kind of go as low as you can, just clear this gap, it's not that bad. And then we'll go up into this normal portal. Now when you arrive at here, there's multiple ways to do this. The intended way, as you can see kind of by the arrow animations, is you let go early and then click up once and then fall down. What I do is I click in the dead center, which is sort of inconsistent. It got me killed, I think, once. I would test what works best because I've seen multiple different methods to get through here, including spamming, doing the intended way, doing what I do. Yeah, that's the intended route right there, baby. Depending on your click pattern, you're going to end up on the lower high side of this, but regardless, you can't just hold through it. You have to do a kind of a mini click to align yourself with here. Okay, now this part, we just click up and then go back down, and then we arrive at another spam section, and then a giant choke point that you need to practice. Now here, oh my god, look how close I was to dying. And then we arrive here. Now here what we have to do is we have to click up through here and then drop back down. This is really weird because we go across the entire duration of the screen. And we have to do that 3 times. And as you can see, we have these saws to dodge, and we also have the ceiling spikes to dodge. So this is a really hard part. Then we drop down into this slow portal. And by here, it's kind of hard to screw up. If you made it here, you basically beat the level. Okay, one side note though. To get aligned here, there are 2 ways. You can fall all the way down and then go up. Or you can do what I did, I think, in my completion, which is where you click up and then kind of align yourself like that by just basically doing a little double click. Then we dodge those spikes, and let me show you the hitboxes here. As you can see, we're slow speed. This is not hard at all. So for that, what I would do is what I just did, which is, as you can see, where you kind of dodge both spikes. If you want, you can do the double clicking strat. I wouldn't risk it if you're not consistent. Then we simply click into this normal speed portal. We have the same thing, but without spikes, and then you do the final spam, and you win. Now, one very, very, very important thing to note. You cannot immediately start spamming. You got to get very close to these spikes, or you have to spam down here and then go back up. If you try to go up early, you're going to hit this saw. Not something you want to die to. Then you just consistently spam. The GG cyclic logo is blocked, so you have to stay up at the top. And whatever you do, do not die at 98% like I did. Oh my god! So if you found this tutorial helpful, please comment, let me know what your record on Sonic Wave is. Thanks for watching.
That don't look like it.
It don't. It don't go down.
Robert, it goes down.
No, it don't.
It do go down.
Oh!